Welcome to the Know Your Ship podcast, presented by eHub. I'm your host, Frank Dolce.
Do they edit this, or is it just straight up what it is?
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, don't make any mistakes.
Don't, yeah.
Because we do very little editing. We like it raw.
All right.
Raw. That's what we're going to call it. Raw.
I think a wrestling has that term taken. Some all-star wrestling.
Do they really? This is Raw with the founder of Rockwell Time, Rich Eggett. Man, I could not be more excited than to have you sitting here with me.
You look it.
Can you tell?
I can tell. I can tell.
We've known each other for a long time. I've always been fascinated by the way you manage and run a business. I think it's different in lots of ways than what people might consider traditional business management, but still with a foundation in traditional business principles, I guess. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, now I'm interested. What's so different? Like, what do you see?
Well, I'm going to have you tell me the difference,
because I don't know what traditional is. So
there you go.
Maybe give me
this
traditional.
This is exactly what you just sold it. That was perfect. You just sold it for me. I think what I'd like to do is, before we get into what you're doing with Rockwell Time and how that evolved, which is an amazing business.
Like it?
Yeah, and we both are. I mean, you have the socks. Those pants aren't shirt, hat, glasses. By the way, the Rockwell sunglasses, my favorite. They're the best. I have this style. I have the aviators.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just got back from Italy. Just returned from Italy, and exciting stuff in the sunglass world. We're doubling. We're going all in on sunglasses.
Are you? Yeah.
Mostly because I like to go to Italy. But
why not?
But no, we went, when watches is your main product, there's a lot of people that will make other ancillary products and they do a poor job. And so being a watch company, we knew when we made a sunglass, there's a lot of people that go to China. China is cheap and easy and they don't do a bad job. But we knew we could not do a Chinese sunglass. So we went 100% Italian handmade sunglasses.
I think that's one thing about Rockwell and Rockwell Time and the products you make. It's a local Utah company. And I don't know, I know the company fairly well. I don't know what others know about the company, but quality product seems to be something that is very important to you in terms of no knock on Chinese made product, but you're making sunglasses. You're going to Italy to make sunglasses because the quality of the product is it's
hands down. There's a lot of stuff in watches. We have our price points. There's stuff that's assembled in Asia. There's stuff that is 100% made in Switzerland. It's from start to finish. It's Swiss made, Swiss automatic movement, and it's expensive. And then we have started recently making some American built watches. Well, watches are different. Watches are really unique. There's no such thing as a watch factory unless it's a super cheap watch. But watches, you gather parts from around the world. They do certain things. Certain countries do certain things better. And I will give the Chinese credit. They're great at assembly. And so there are times we will assemble watches in Asia. And it's more efficient. We have a license with the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines. So we have to make sure all of our factories are certified and there's no child labor. We know the people we work with, but we really enjoy doing stuff in Italy and Switzerland here in the U.S. So we started to build a lot, we have 4 models now that are built here in the U.S. and we're making more parts here in the U.S. as well, doing customization here because it's one, we love the America theme, and 2, it's easier. It's more expensive, but it's easier to deal with and handle quality control and handle anything at a local level.
Sure.
So,
well, I have a conspiracy theory that you like to manufacture product just the places where you like to travel. So you like to go to Italy, you probably like to go to Switzerland. Is that accurate?
We first started manufacturing and marketing in things that we understood. As far as when we first started marketing Rockwell, we sat down with a group of guys that worked there and said, "What do you like to do?" And I believe in authenticity. And so, we had a guy that was a pro fighter, a guy that was a pro motocross guy, a guy that was a pro wakeboarder. We had skiers. That's where we marketed. We went to the crowds that we understood, that we knew, and we could be authentic. We were big America guys, and first responders and fire, police, military. That's who we sold to. That's who we marketed our product, where we marketed the events that we attended, just because we liked it. And then when we got into sunglasses, we loved going to Italy.
Well, that's a great start to this story. Is we're going to start where you are now at Rockwell, but I want to go back a little further. Like, how did you develop this, your business philosophy? How did you get to where you are today? So let's back up a few steps. You're a Utah native, is that correct?
Yes.
Grew up in Bountiful, Woods Cross.
Mostly born
area.
Lived in Glendale when I was first born until I was about 6, and then moved to Bountiful and was there until I graduated high school. And back in Davis County now.
And you graduated from which high school?
Bountiful High.
Bountiful, nice.
Bountiful Braves, they've since changed their name.
I know, but I still call them the Bountiful Braves. It's hard to get around.
That's who they are.
Yeah,
that's who they are.
Yeah. So, coming out of high school, you were an athlete, wrestler.
Is it fair to call a wrestler an athlete?
Wrestlers are the best athletes. Let's be honest.
I will tell you, I would go to the BYU father and sons camp, and before the camp, they'd always say, "Can all former BYU athletes stand up?" And I'd always go, "Man, I was a wrestler. Was I an athlete? was I an athlete here at BYU?" No, believe me, I think that wrestlers I think that is, played football, ran track, and wrestled in high school. You don't play wrestling. You play the other sports, you wrestle.
You make a pretty good point.
And you wonder, I would put a wrestler against any other sport or person in the world. There's no amount of determination, dedication. I think, look, I love all sports, but there is something different. Because wrestling, there's no glory. There's Mark Schultz, my collegiate coach, who I believe is one of the toughest men to ever walk the face of the earth and one of the greatest wrestlers to ever live, would say, the thing about wrestling is, whether you win or lose, you still had to wrestle. You still wrestled. It's still brutal. It's still, when you get to a level, like I see my son, Ryder, he's wrestling in junior high right now. And there are some matches where he toys with the guy. It's not even a match. It's so unevenly matched. And then there are some matches where the kid is amazing that he's wrestling, and it's a battle and it's a war. So at that point, there are some matches that are great. But even for his third and fourth place match last week, it went into overtime. It was he had 7 matches last week, won 6. The one he lost was a brutal match to the very end, went the distance. But everyone, when you get into tournaments and you get into when it's qualification tournaments, everybody's good. When I got into college, there's nothing. There were no easy matches.
Right.
There's nothing. When I went to they have a thing called the National Freestyle Championships, and it happened to be an Olympic year. So if you placed there, you went to the Olympic trials. And there were every person there that entered tried to kill me. There was nothing, I didn't score a point. And it was so humbling to go,
whoa, you were the opposite of Dan Gable.
I was the opposite.
Who went unscored a punt.
Yes. I went unscored. And yeah, it's incredible. And so, but even when I won, and even when I got to tournaments where I did well and won the majority of my matches, the worst guy in college is a phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah.
So it's a different, it's just, there's no glory in wrestling. It takes a determination. There's nobody to blame if you lose.
It's all on you.
You're all out there. You have to work, and it's 7 minutes long. So it's not like you have a whole 2 hours to showcase your skills. You're out there for 7 minutes. You practice every day. You work on things, and the person wants to hurt you. And it's so, yeah, I don't know if we're athletes, but
it's an interesting point that you make, because I would put wrestlers at the apex of athleticism for things like focus, effort, determination, sacrifice, all of the meaningful things. So
I would agree.
In terms of any other sport, I don't know if anyone competes on that level in those areas. I'm sure you could pick out people from different sports who
that have all those
things as well. But in terms of wrestling, it seems like that's pervasive throughout.
If you can be successful in wrestling, I think it's a determination of the rest of your life.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to make that connection between your wrestling career and what you're doing currently and how that led up to this. The one thing I would say about wrestlers and not being athletes is there's lots of talk about crossover. Like, would Kobe Bryant also be a great football player or be a great baseball player? Michael Jordan, famously greatest basketball player of all time, played baseball and still, made it to the minor leagues. Was
still good, but not.
I can't imagine Cale Sanderson running up and down on a basketball court. I mean, would he just be like the enforcer? Or
that's very interesting, because I see certain we get in this soccer, going to Italy and going to Spain and going to the different places.
Syria,
they talk about soccer, and I always make the argument. I say, look, in America, our best athletes don't play soccer. They don't choose that right now. If they did, I wonder where it would end up. And then I look at soccer players, and I don't know if our best athletes could play soccer. I don't know. But it would translate much easier. So basketball, football, soccer, I think, are three that there might be some crossover. If you're an athlete in one of those three and you've done those things, there can be some crossover. You're an athlete. Baseball is that, you're up here, your hand-eye coordination, that's a different, baseball might be a little more difficult. It's a lot of, there's no endurance in baseball. There's no running, and there's some different skills that translate there. Golf is a different one. But the three big that we have, and put hockey in there. Hockey, you have to learn to skate.
Yeah.
But put the big three, and I think those athletes translate. Wrestling does not. I don't believe it translates. Here's what translates. If you give me a wrestler and you say, go become a great, look, John Stockton was 6 feet tall and became what I believe has an argument of one of the very best basketball players to ever live.
Yeah.
Because of the fact, you show me another person that leads they keep track of 4 categories: blocks, assists, steals, and points. One person owns 2 of them, of every person that's ever played. So John Stockton, not a physical specimen, but he owns 2 of the 4 categories that they keep track of in basketball.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So if you give me a wrestler and you say, put all the effort you put into wrestling, if I took every bit of effort I put into wrestling and put it into golf or tennis or baseball, I don't know because of the hand-eye coordination, but football, or, I put an effort into football and did fairly well and had a few smaller school scholarship offers. But if I would have not wrestled and put all that effort in, where does that take you? So I think a wrestler,
Sure.
but the athleticism of wrestling doesn't translate. Yeah, running up and down a basketball court, I get more takedowns in basketball than I do points scored.
Right.
So it just doesn't translate. It's a different, now it translates into MMA and translates into a few other things, but it doesn't translate into
the big 3-ish, 4-ish.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Penn State, Cale Sanderson.
Again, another national championship.
Dominant.
Yeah.
So
unbelievable.
So unbelievable. So good. Well, before we get into this, I mean, I think you're laying this really good foundation for everything it takes to be a competitive wrestler and how you can utilize that in your life. I think all of those lessons, I want you to talk about all of those lessons that you learned and how that's helped you today. I would like to talk about your experience at BYU because you mentioned Mark Schultz, your coach, and there's an infamous story about his brother Dave.
Yeah.
And you were not involved in it, but you were
I was in the office with him when he got the call.
And so tell us just a little bit of the background of that story and where you were.
So if you've seen the movie Foxcatcher, and that's some crazy stuff there. It's not so true. There's a lot of truth to it, but
a little Hollywood.
Bennett Miller, who did the Moneyball, took a lot of liberties, and actually one liberty that Mark almost ended Bennett Miller over. But yeah, there was a little bit of controversy.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, it's another story, but it got brutal for what Mark was going after Bennett for some stuff that he did not like about the movie. Wow. There's a great documentary I believe ESPN did on that is phenomenal. Better watch than Foxcatcher. Even though they had great actors, Steve Carell from The Office plays John DuPont.
Sure.
Who's the guy that plays Mark Schultz? Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mark is actually in the movie as a ref weighing Channing in, wearing one of our watches. Kind of cool.
Is that right?
But yeah. So
who's better looking, Mark or Channing Tatum?
Oh, I'd say Mark by far because Mark can beat me up, and I don't think Channing can.
Channing is also a heck of a dancer, though. So
yeah. I haven't seen that movie, but I'm glad you have. Terrible story. There was a guy, John DuPont. I believe he's the guy who invented the triathlon as well. But he was a rich heir to the DuPont fortune. Strange guy. Had lots of issues in his life. But he loved wrestling, and he created a whole campus at his farm and had wrestling rooms, and he brought Mark over, and he funded that. There was no funding for wrestling back then, and he did something that helped wrestlers, and they went and they trained, and he gave them a platform, and he gave them training, and basically paid them to be part of his team. Mark finally said, "Hey, enough's enough. I can't deal with this guy." If you watch the movie, you see some things. It just wasn't worth it. Well, Dave was making a comeback at I believe 36, 37 years old to go try to hit the Olympics again. And actually, when I went with Mark to the National Freestyle Championships in Vegas, I was in Dave's weight. Well, Mark was my coach. And I wasn't worried, but I was also in the weight of Pat Smith. Oh, Pat Smith was the first 4-time national champion in the history of college wrestling. And so I was so nervous. I'm like, oh man, I hope I'm not on his side. How do I go this? And Mark told me, he goes, "Oh, don't worry about Pat, worry about Dave." And I kind of laughed. I'm like, Dave's old. He's been out of the sport. He's older than you, Mark, And he's like, "No, worry about Dave." And I said, "Not worried about Dave. And I'm worried about Pat." And anyway, go through. I didn't have to worry about either of them because I didn't make it that far. but I got there. And my buddy Morgan Robinson actually scored a point on Dave. I think it was the only point scored upon him the whole tournament. And he literally punished Morgan for scoring that point. Beat him up. Just destroyed him. Kicked him in the face. I mean, just beat him up. But anyway, it gets down to a match between Dave and Pat Smith. And I'm thinking, Pat's going to destroy him. Pat's a 4-time, first in the history of the sport. Not even Dan Gable. Nobody had won 4 national championships. And he's going against this old man in my book. And They go out there, and I believe Dave beat him 10-0, and they stopped the match.
They just called it.
Well, that's a tech fault. Like, it's over. I don't think Pat scored a point on Dave. So Dave goes on to win it. Most likely will make the Olympics, goes back to Foxcatcher Farms.
Okay, so
there's word.
And he went back there to train for the Olympics. And,
and do everything. And because Mark left, John DuPont wanted to get his claws into Dave. And anyway, I believe John was so crazy that Dave was contemplating leaving. And so he came out, he drove down there, came out, Dave came outside, his wife and 2 kids were there, and John just shot and killed him right in his front yard.
So Dave was there coaching, working on...
Just working out, preparing for the Olympics. They had a house because they had houses and training facilities and everything.
DuPont was worried.
On DuPont's big old Foxcatcher Farms.
Mark was gone.
Mark was at BYU at that time.
Coaching you. Dave...
At this time, I think I was coaching with him. I'd already graduated and I was...
And so Dave was maybe threatening to leave with his family. DuPont was a weird dude.
Oh, he was he had mental health issues, just a ton of them. Yeah. He was mentally ill.
And so he murdered Dave right there in the driveway.
Right there in the driveway.
Yeah, and
I was with
in the
Mark
office
when he got
the
call. I see these brick walls. Mark punched a brick wall, and I promise he moved it. It was insane. It was a tough time for Mark. They were close. I mean, they were high school national champions together. They were collegiate national champions together. They were world champions together. They were Olympic champions together. Like, there's no...
Yeah.
I mean, they were close.
Yeah. That's an unbelievable...
Yeah, it was a bad day.
Unbelievable story. Okay. Well, I want to go back to your... Now,
can I ask something first? Can I?
Absolutely.
So I want to know who it was. So who? Just, you got to know what I'm talking about. I get the email on the podcast.
Yes.
That gives you the instructions here, and here's what it is.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, no. Who is the person that it was written for? That where you have a line in there that says, please wear comfortable clothes so you're not moving around and adjusting your pants and your shirt the whole podcast.
It wasn't written for you.
Well, I want to know who did it.
You're wearing comfortable clothes.
No, but I want to know who came here and that you had to put a note in there that said, wear something comfortable. Well, so you're not like, I mean, who danced? Who did it?
Nobody. Okay. These days,
just preemptively
nobody.
Said,
I mean, I feel like I should do a podcast on how to dress appropriately in the workplace. Nobody... I mean, the business it's so far below a business casual these days in the workplace that it makes me uncomfortable. This is how I dress every day.
I know you're sharp. You're sharp.
I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not adjusting anything.
I was nervous. I'm like, man, I'm dressed up. I'm wearing pants. My son asked me if I was going to church today because I had pants on. So
I had Fernanda Bohm and Michael Berkland.
Oh man,
is he the best?
The greatest.
And he and I thought that we would invite you to lunch, which we should still do. Let's do that. And then the way that we were going to dress is that I was going to get an oversized hoodie
and some shorts
and some extra long basketball shorts. And then we were gonna both show up like that.
Yeah.
Michael was talking about wearing a headband, but I don't know if that's...
I haven't worn one for a while. I cut my hair. So my hair is much shorter.
You've gone through, you guys are lucky. You can go through different iterations. This is all you get. I mean, I do the same thing. Wednesday was my shave day.
It looks good. It looks good.
Thank you.
Mine's the shortest it's been in years.
It looks good. So, you look good. Like, I mean, I've known you for a long time and you look like you are getting back down to your fighting weight.
I'm never going to make that again.
But close.
But yeah, that's one of the terrible things about being a wrestler is I look at a bunch. There's some that are still dedicated and they look really good.
Yeah.
But I remember telling my wife when
like
I got done wrestling, I was 28, and I'm like, okay, I'm not. There's no further. This isn't going anywhere. Got done coaching. Mark hired me as a student assistant and then just a part-time faculty at BYU to help out. And once I left the program, I told my wife, I said, listen, man, I started when I was 5. I didn't know what butter tastes like. I didn't know what ice cream tastes like. I didn't have chocolate or candy, or I didn't drink soda pop for 20 something years. Didn't have soda, didn't have anything. You know, I would play football at 200 pounds. My 9th grade year, I wrestled 145. My 10th grade year, I wrestled 145. My 11th grade year, I wrestled 145. My senior year, I wrestled 189. So, but I'd play those other years. I would play football at 200, 205, and I would wrestle at 145.
Wow.
You know, that's 55, 60 pounds a year. So it's not healthy. It's not good for you, but I took a break.
I hear you.
It was terrible.
I hear you.
Terrible.
It's not healthy and it's not good for you. I know what you're saying, but there's also this, what we were talking about earlier, this discipline and focus and determination that goes along with being successful in the sport. And so as I look at you now as a business owner, there has to be lessons learned from your experience growing up as a wrestler and maybe even depriving yourself of things that has helped you build this organization and the success that you have today. Is that fair to say?
I would for sure think that look, if you're going to compete, or you're going to try to, you know, in business is, my brother just sent me something from Elon Musk, who said, yeah, owning a business is not great. You have to deal with all the terrible things. You have to, you know, the big problems you have to deal. You don't get to deal with the fun stuff. You deal with the problems. You deal with the hard things. It's difficult to start. There are times, I mean, there's a reason that 99.9% of the businesses are out of business in the first 3 years. Mm-hmm. There's a reason that thousands and thousands start and very few are around in 3 years and 5 years. There's a reason that it's not fun all the time. It's not. But with wrestling, man, practice isn't fun. And it's mundane. You do the same thing over. Mark Schultz used to say, I did what I hated the most. That's how he got better. Like he said, I did what I hated the most. He had another saying that he would say, look, I know what you've got. You know what I've got. Try to stop me. It's not. You can watch their matches. You can watch it. And so whenever I think that you get into a situation, look, if you're going to fight me, if you're going to compete with me, man, pack a lunch, bring a hard hat, because I don't think you can go to deep. I've been to deep waters. In wrestling. I've gone days and days. You know, it's popular now to do the 32, 60, million day fast, whatever they're doing now. You know, all of these things. It's like,
I remember when it was just like a 40-day thing.
Yeah. But people, you know, they're doing this, and it's hard. I respect the heck out of them, because I've done that. You know, I've done and they're having water as well. But I've been 3 days without food or water. I've done weeks without stuff.
Sounds like you did the 23 year
very
fast.
very little, and being able to deprive yourself of what you want now, to be able to compete a little bit better tomorrow, or to be able to do a little more, because it is mundane doing the same thing over and over till you perfect it, or till you, and to also you react. Wrestling is a chess match as well, because you're reacting to what someone else does. Mm-hmm. If you remember, we used to have the, Johnny Ritchie and I used to have the radio show on ESPN. Mm-hmm. And we actually had to buy the show, because I remember one time talking about sports and talking about some things I don't think are a sport. Just like I said, I don't know if wrestlers are athletes. You know, I think they're the greatest competitors of all time. No doubt. Are you an athlete? I think I could make an argument that they're the greatest athletes to ever live, or we're not even athletes, mm-hmm. and we're just competitors or warriors, battlers. But with certain sports I look at and I rank them of what effect does your opponent have upon your performance? And if your opponent has no effect on your performance, I don't think it's a sport. It's a hobby. It's something else. So if I look at it and I say, obviously football, your opponent has your performance is affected by your opponent.
Sure.
If I look at basketball, if I look at hockey, if I look at baseball, If I look at now, I go to track. I love track. It's one of my favorite sports. I love my son to play. But if I'm high jumping and you're high jumping, we're not even doing it at the same time. You have no effect on my performance. If I look at gymnastics, if I look at cheerleading, if I look at golf, I don't think golf's a sport. You're playing at 8 a.m. I'm playing at noon. Different conditions, everything's different.
Let me ask you a question about that. It's an interesting point, but let's just say that Ryder's out there competing and he's in the long jump, and his longest jump is. Tell me, what would his does he compete in the long jump?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is his longest jump?
Last year, as a 13 or 12 year, I can't remember, he qualified for the Junior Olympic. He won the state with a 17.4.
17.4.
In his age group. And then he went to the 8, there's 8 states in a region, and he won that one, again in the 17s. Then we went to the Junior Olympics of the whole United States, and in his age group in 12 and 13, I think it was, or maybe it's 13, 14, I can't remember. There were kids getting 20 feet, So I believe he was top, but his jump was still, he qualified for the top, for the finals, which I think was 20 kids or 25 kids. Mm-hmm. So he was in the top 25 in the United States. But you can't tell me that as he jumps in 18, that some kid runs and jumps and can look down and go, oh, I'm going to get 18.1.
But doesn't he know that? Does Ryder know, like, hey, my best jump is 14.7. This kid just jumped 18.
17.4, but
17.4. I'm going to have to jump 18. That affects his performance.
I don't know, but you don't know where you put your foot. You can't tell. I disagree. I mean, I just don't think. And golf, I've got to get it in 3 or what. I don't think it's a sport. I just don't. It's incredibly entertaining. I am so impressed with golfers because I could never do that.
But they're not athletes.
No, I wouldn't say they're not athlete. They're an athlete because they train and they do their stuff. I would say they're athlete. I think you can be an athlete, but your sport, it's a sport, but I categorize them is how much of it. So even in football, the left guard has no effect on the performance of the defensive back, or the vice versa. There's some one-on-one, but you can lose a foot. We lost our state playoff game because our kicker missed, and your kicker, missed a couple extra points, couple field goals.
You know how I feel about
kickers. A dropped pass, I can have the game of my life, and someone can drop a pass, or someone can do a pass interference or something. It's a little bit different. Your actual performance can't seal a game. Basketball, you could have the game of your life, but your other guys could be terrible. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, to me, a step below. Like, I think tennis, if I were to put a pinnacle of sports, boxing, wrestling, tennis, one-on-one sports without teammates, that you have a direct effect on the outcome of the event and on the performance of your
So you might just categorize that as a different level of sport.
But if there's nothing, gymnastics, you run out and do your flips and tricks and stuff. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen. I respect them more than anything. But no matter what you do, and I take another level, things that are judged. If there's
I might agree. Like, are you talking like figure skating? I might agree with you on that.
If it's judged, even most sports have a referee, but it's some things are judgment calls. But if there's no chance for an ending, and in the pinnacle, my pinnacle of pinnacles are a chance that no matter what the score is, to end the contest. So boxing, you could lose 10 rounds and knock them out in the 11th. Wrestling, you can be losing by 10 points and pin them. If you look at MMA, there's a tap out, there's a knockout. To me, those are the pinnacle. That it's not judged. If you leave it in the judge's hand, as soon as it comes to a judgment, that's what takes MMA down a notch for me, and boxing down a notch. Where wrestling, there's no judgment at the end. You scored the point or you didn't. No. Now, there is some judgment calls on the referee, but it takes it to there. Gymnastics, figure skating, diving, some of the most incredible, and I love watching them. But if there's 3 people
holding up a number at the end,
or a ski race that's timed or something, incredible what they do. Their athletes are incredible, but I don't consider, if you cannot directly affect the performance of your competitor, how is that? That's a different kind of sport to me.
Where would you put Dancing with the Stars in that?
Oh, the top of the top. No, but it's another judged thing.
I know.
But even dancing is judged, and I just can't stand that you can do your best and someone else can do better. You can't you can't go out and punch them when they're dancing. You can't.
Yeah. I think maybe I've always talked about full contact golf. Like, I think that would be more entertaining.
Yeah. They have full contact wrestling now, or basketball. I don't know if you've seen that.
I don't know that I've seen that
church
either.
Ball. No, no, but they really do. They really do have a full contact basketball where you can tackle them and you can. Wow. It's kind of a wrestling basketball mix. So anyway, medieval. that's kind of. Have no idea where I was going with that story.
Well, I'm gonna bring you back to this. The things that you learned in wrestling and applying those to your business life. You said, like, there's no one who's going to outwork you, who's going to outprice.
Okay, yeah, that's probably where I was going.
So how does that affect you today? How has that?
It goes back to reaction. Okay, so in wrestling, you have to react to what your opponent is doing, and you have to overcome that obstacle or do something else. You have to, you watch, you learn about, you know what they do well, and you have to do stuff. So in wrestling, it's helped me because I can react to situations and not panic and know that it's going to be tough and know that even a win, sometimes you get beat up. And if you have, look, I've gone through good and bad with employees, good and bad with partners. I've had some, and you have to move on. When you're done with the wrestling match, a lot of times you're in a tournament and your goal is to take first place. Well, when you lose a match, it's impossible to take first place anymore. So you have to determine, am I going to do there's a consolation bracket. Mm-hmm. You have to go down there. So you have to wrestle more times. You have to go through more. If you're a 16-man bracket, you wrestle 4 times and you're the champion. That's it. If you lose your first match, you have like 6 matches or 7 matches to take third place. And so you have your 1 loss. It's much more difficult. There's a path back to it, and you can win your last match, but you're still not first place. And so you have to learn in business as well. Move on. You lost, move on. Take something, learn from it. Like I said, I've had some what I think are terrible experiences with some partners. But guess what? I had a great time with them for 10 years or 15 years. And if I look back, I'm like, man, I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. They helped what they could. If I dwell on, did they steal from me, or did they do something that was bad to me, or did they think the same about me? I don't know. It didn't work out. That's all I know. And so was it my fault? Was it their fault? I don't know. I can take what I think I did wrong and get better from it, but I got to go right back because I've got another match in a half hour. I've got another, so that one's over. I can't do anything about it. I learned some good things from it. Did I enjoy it? And in the case of employees that maybe steal from you or maybe don't do a good job or whatever it is, hey, did you have fun? Did they help in any way? What did I learn from it? How can I be better? And then move on. And wrestling teaches you that. You don't have the time to dwell on it.
I think one of the interesting things is when you have a setback, you talked about in a wrestling match, you have a setback, but there's still a path.
Yeah.
And you can take that path. I think that applies to the business world. I'm sure you've had that experience. Let's say that some of your partners, maybe critical partners of yours, decided that it wasn't for them anymore. Whatever the case was, they left. That could have been potentially devastating. At that point, as a business owner, you could have said, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. That's hard because if you have people that are in critical positions,
yes,
most of the time it works out well. We've had people that helped with manufacturing, or people that I trusted completely, or people that I worked with. Well, all of a sudden, certain key clients were gone, didn't work with us anymore. Certain manufacturing partners wouldn't even take my calls that they worked with, and that could have been devastating. But it turned out to be the greatest thing to ever happen because we got new manufacturing partners. It forced us to go in a different direction. We started making stuff here in the U.S. We started using, we did things. And so sometimes a setback can be one of the greatest things because it forces you to innovate, do things differently. And so sometimes people that thought they were trying to hurt you did you your biggest favor. They did things that we wouldn't be where we are without certain things happening in our business that at the time seemed terrible. And even learning valuable lessons. We made a deal. We had someone who was I put in charge of the company. I made him a certain position in the company. He made a deal with someone that was a big deal. It was a
well-known individual,
well-known athlete, put in some money, and I don't like it. I've never taken an investor. Don't take investors. Don't like that. Got talked into this thing. Turned out to be when this person left, turned out to be a bad deal. Turned out to be a deal that didn't work out, and so we were going to get sued by the person that put in the money. My attorney looks at it and he said, "Look, man, this guy signed all kinds of things. You'll win. You'll win in court. You will win in court. He has no leg to stand on. Plus, here's the guy who signed the agreement that said he wouldn't take any money. So his signature, and he took money. So we could ultimately go back to him and do stuff, all kinds of things that put us in I believe, the driver's seat. I worked with a guy, Jason Van Camp from Warrior Rising, does great things for veterans to teach them business, and I work with him. I was talking to him about this situation and said, my attorney says we'll kill him, but my attorney also said, he goes, look, when you're in a lawsuit, it's the first thing you think about in the morning and the last thing you think about before you go to bed. I learned some valuable lessons there as well, because I said this will not be because it was for a month. But then I learned, you know what? It won't be. I started doing stuff for me, my faith. I started reading, scriptures, or I started thinking about family. I started looking at pictures. I'm like, nah, you're not going to beat me. Like I said, bring a hard hat, pack a lunch, because if we're going to war, it's going to be war. If you're going to go against me, you know what? You may win actually, but I promise you'll have wrestled, and I will get so many licks in that you'll never want to wrestle me again, win or lose. Like you're going to war, let's go to war. So I started saying, okay, how do I not think about this every morning, every night? How do I do this? And how do we, this guy's attorney would say, we're going to serve you on Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving. We're going to serve you in front of family and friends. We're going to come after you at Christmas time. I mean, he was terrible. And I'm like, well, nobody cares about me, but they care about your clients. So if we're going to embarrass people, nobody cares about Rich Eggett, but I promise you they care about your clients. So we're gonna go, and so I'm getting amped up to go to war with this guy. And I'm thinking of ways to they're going to make my life miserable. I'll make yours so miserable that you'll give up first. I promise you'll give up first if we're going to war. So anyway, Jason tells me, he goes, okay, let's look at the thing. Did this guy do anything wrong that put in the money? I said, well, one, I can show you the contract. There's $125,000 missing right off the bat from what they said, and this and that, and I'm pointing out all these things of both of these guys. He said, no, but did the guy that put in money do anything wrong? I'm like, no, he didn't do anything wrong. He said, did he trusted you? I go, he didn't trust me. He didn't know me. He'd never met me. He doesn't know anything about me. And that was part of our argument. Is part of the suit was, you told him this, and then I said, never talk to him, never text him, don't have his email, don't have his phone number. It was somebody else. So they came back and said, oh, sorry, we won't, it'll go away, never going to do anything. And then 6 months later came back for a new reason, oh, you didn't do a good job, Right. And so, like I said, my attorney says you'll crush him. Well, Jason said, no, but did he do anything wrong? He put in, and he trusted you. I said, he didn't trust me. That's our whole thing. He said, no, wait a minute. Did you trust the guy you put in as president of your company? And I said, well, yeah. He said, then he trusted you. You're the owner. It stops here. Pay the guy his money. And I'm like, well, we could settle for half, most likely. He said, pay the guy his money back. And I'm like, this guy's a Green Beret. He's a Green Beret, Army Ranger. He's been there. He signed his name on the dotted line to maybe give up his life for freedom. And he said, you made a mistake. You trusted someone you shouldn't have trusted, and therefore you're responsible. I'm like, no way. I was arguing with him. I'm like, that's $500,000 I'm going to give up to somebody just to be honorable. I don't know if I've got that in me, because the law says this. This guy signed a thing saying I'm a sophisticated blah, 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 blah. He said, no, you're going to do the right thing. You call his attorney. So I call his attorney and I said, hey, look, I'm going to give him, I just want, he owned 5% of my company. I said, I'm going to give him his whole, whatever he thinks he put in, $500,000, I'm going to give it all back. I want to buy that back. And even his attorney said, oh, your attorney will never let you do that. There's no way. And I said, well, I've talked to him and, he understands that he works for me and this is what I want to do. It's going to go. I trusted a guy who probably did you wrong. Like I don't know the detail. I don't know what they talked about. I don't know. But this guy trusted someone I trusted and therefore cost me $500,000.
And it goes back on you.
It was a bad deal.
But I think that's really valuable. I mean, obviously there's lessons there we can talk about, but how important, based on this experience and based on your life, based on your wrestling career, based on all the people that you've been around, like the Schultz family, how important is honor and integrity in your life and in your business? And would you
I think it's the most important.
Would you ever walk across that line?
No, it's not worth it because what do you, and even for this, I look back at the old partners I've had over the years. Man, I don't think they're bad guys. I had a ton of fun with them. They helped and we were great friends. We were friends. And so I think most people think they're doing the right thing. I think there are bad people.
Sure.
They're bad people.
Yeah.
And maybe they are, maybe they're not. But to me, I'd rather think about, man, I had a ton of fun with them. They helped me to build a business. We got to here. I feel like I never once crossed an ethics line or an honor or integrity. But if you ask them, they might say this, oh man, he didn't treat me fairly or he didn't do this. And all I can do is try to be better and try to do better on the next people that I work with or something else.
Sure.
But I can say I never would or have done anything I thought. I wouldn't just cross those lines. It's not worth it because you have to live with yourself at the end of the day. Yeah. And you have to, no matter how much, and I know a lot of rich people that are miserable. So if it's just about money, look, that's not enough. A lot of rich, miserable people out there.
Yeah.
And that's, so I would say honor is probably the most important. And in wrestling, you can't cheat. It's hard to cheat.
Yeah.
How do you cheat in wrestling? It's all out for the world to see.
Yeah.
There's no, you can't.
There's not much to hide in that singlet.
No. And when you're out there, look, everyone's on 2P. If there's 11 guys on this side and 11 guys on that, there's a lot of stuff you can do. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stuff you can get away with. Sure. And there's equipment. I also look at sports with no equipment. There's no balls, no rackets, no, there's nothing else that you can't, it's just mano a mano, you against them. And I think business is that way a lot. In a lot of instances, there's nothing else that happens. The great thing about business is there are tools. There are things you can use. And the better tools you have and the better equipment you have, and the easier it is.
Yeah. That's interesting that you bring that up. So what about that in your business life? Like in terms of better tools, better equipment, is that things like hardware, software, platforms, or is it education, experience, continual learning?
I would say experience is so important. Experience is very important, but tools like, I'll give you guys a shout out. There's certain things you have to worry about as a business owner and other things you don't. If you ask me a question about my shipping, you guys do our shipping.
Yeah.
I couldn't give you the first clue. I have to ask him every once in a while, does Frank still do our shipping? Every 3-4 months, I'll say, Frank still do our shipping?
When they say no, will you call?
I'll call you.
Okay.
But that's great if I don't have to worry about. And I think getting certain things into place that I don't have to worry about, because I have to worry about enough. If I get asked every single question, like I will tell you, one of the biggest questions I get asked outside of business is, will you guys ever make a smartwatch? And my answer is never, never. Even though you never say never, I say never. Because we made a smartwatch that did text, did things long before even Apple. That's an older technology. That's not new. And when we tested and you wear things and you'd see, because I thought, hey, this could be great. This could be awesome. I'm telling you, the people that wear smartwatches are the people back in Moses' day that would have said, sign me up for slavery. So, throw me in and let me do the work. I want to go to prison. They're the people that would say, I haven't really done anything wrong, but lock me up. Hey, when the prison was appointed the mountain out here, look, my phone, I call it, the words, there's a word game that it's like, there's a word in the middle and it's cell, and then you have a word before and after.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I call it my prison cell phone. It's a prison cell and a cell phone. You put those together. That is a prison cell. You are connected. It's making it so difficult to get anything done. And going back to the business, what you say is easy. There was a point where you had to make decisions. We're not growing great people anymore. We're growing employees. We're growing people that just ask a question. Because if your manager, the owner, or your direct supervisor isn't there, you can text them and get an answer. You don't have to go through the analytics of making a good decision. And as an owner, you're not developing great people, so you're always connected because your phone's there. You have your phone. You have something available. Nobody is growing, and everything is being put on the one guy at the top, the tip of the spear, because they can make every decision. And it's like, I got to make this and I got to make this one. So figuring out which ones to make and which ones to let the people decide and grow and learn so they can do, because most of the people that work for me are probably smarter than I. They probably can do a better job than I do, but if they're never allowed the opportunity to analyze and grow, and then, and also at home, what is my kid? Is he getting airlifted out of the jungle? Now my son walks down the house. Hey, you're going 4 houses down. Call us when you get there. Hey, tell us what are you doing? Right. What you have a thing. Why does a kid need a cell phone?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What are they doing so important that it's so nervous, so dangerous for them? Mm-hmm. And now you have that prison cell phone. Hey, I think I'll just throw an ankle monitor on. Are you kidding me? You really, if you think about it, and if you're a man out there and you wear an ankle monitor on your wrist, tell me this. They did a study, and more than half of the men that wear an ankle monitor watch on their wrist, it was given to them by their wife or their boss. Why? Because they want them, they want to know what you're doing. I don't even know where my phone is in this room right now. So if somebody texts me or my wife calls me and I say, I don't know where my phone is, but if I'm wearing that sucker on my wrist, I know you got the message. It's on your wrist. If your boss needs to get hold of you, you're wearing that ankle monitor on your wrist, And when we're having a conversation and you and I are having a conversation and I look down and tap and they do this, I don't even want to have a conversation with them anymore. Yeah. I'm like, hey, if you can't, we're in the middle of something and you're like,
if you
I
can't
want to tap them, it's annoying. And so that's a question I constantly get. You make smartwatch? No.
Nope.
I want to get rid of my phone.
Yeah.
I want to get rid of, I want to be, I remember working for my brother-in-law we were wiring a house and he did, he was an electrician. And I had a thing in college, it's a paper due, and it said, what is success? So I was asking successful people who I thought were successful. And while we were talking, a horn honked in a car. This is back before, I'm old, so this is back before cell phones. This was a car phone. And when it rang, it would honk. And the general manager of this big construction project ran out and answered his phone. And it was hooked to the car. And my brother-in-law said, man, I'll know I'm successful when I need one of those. When I need a cell phone, when I need a car phone. I'm so busy that I got to get back to people. They can't leave one at the office or a message or anything else. That's when I'll know I'm successful. I look at it now and I say, I'll know I'm successful when I don't need a cell phone. When you don't need a cell phone, when you don't have to be connected, then that's when you're successful. If you don't have to answer every call, every text, everything, you're successful. Oh, I know the people that I'm trying to get hold of, if they're successful, I know, man, there's a small chance I get hold of them. Gotcha. But that's interesting. And you prioritize. And a lot of times I miss some and I think, I shouldn't have missed that one. But I will never. And going back to your question about the business, I think that's a key is the equipment or the shipping, the stuff I do that I don't have to worry about. Having the correct people in place with the ability to make decisions, with the correct equipment, and that equipment may be a software, it could be hardware, it could be, we do all of our customization now in-house. We used to rely on somebody else. We used to rely and we had to worry about it. And I told Taylor Chapman, I said, we're going to learn how to make dials here in the U.S. You're going to be able to, he's impossible. I'm like, Taylor, you're the brightest guy I know that can't spell, but you are a genius.
I know guys like that.
And I said, you'll figure it out. He figured it out. And now we do dials for everybody. We figured out how to do it with the right hardware, the right software. And I don't know how. I don't know how it works. I just know they do it. And so the more things like shipping, like customization equipment that they can have to make my life easier so I can concentrate on not making the wrong decisions on who to trust, or making the correct decisions on what we're going to order, sunglasses. We've made our biggest sunglass purchase since the beginning of our company in 17 years. And we used to have 2 women's models. We have 9 women's models now that are coming in. We have new men's models, and that's a decision I want to be able to make.
Sure.
Not, what's wrong with shipping, or what's wrong with the customization, or how come we can do that?
Well, the sunglasses, again, are a great product. It sounds like what I'm hearing is that empowering people is one of the things that you do well. And maybe
I would like to do well. I need to do better because I like, why'd you do this? Why'd you put that music there? I'm working on it. And I believe I need to do that better to be more successful.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point. And I think the one thing you say about it is, I'll go back to the smartwatch and technology. I think just to push back a little, I think technology can be very beneficial. Like there are things that we get out of a smartwatch or a phone by us regularly that can be helpful in your business life. I do agree with you. You can't get away from anyone. Like I can't get away. People know that I have a cell phone and they can text me. And then if I don't respond immediately, then what have I done wrong? Like you can't.
Yeah, you ghosted him.
You can't get away. So, and by the way, remember when I told you at the beginning of the hour that an hour, we're over an hour now.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I told you. It goes by so fast. Okay, so I just have a couple more. Let's wrap this up.
Okay.
I want you to tell me, what is the thing as a business owner that you do best? Or what is your philosophy on business that you kind of share with others?
I would say something I hope we do better, or not even, I don't care. I hope everybody does this well. So I thought of a thing. So our motto, not our live unrivaled, because we have that as our live unrivaled, try to do everything just unrivaled. But if every meeting that we have at our company, every time we get together and we talk, I have a saying that's leave them better, leave them better. Anyone you're dealing with, leave them better. I don't care if you're going through the drive-through at McDonald's to get a Diet Coke or whatever, that lady, that man, whoever gives it to you, leave them better. If we're dealing with our most important client and they have an interaction with somebody at Rockwell, leave them better. Just leave them better, whether it's whatever you're doing. If it's someone that's making stuff for us, we learned a long time ago when we'd go to our manufacturers, we'd take them gifts. Usually they give you gifts because you're paying them money.
Sure.
We started giving them gifts and trying to leave them better. They started giving us better quality product, better pricing. And that was just, we didn't do it for that. But life is so difficult. You know how many people suffer with mental health issues and they're depressed and they have a hard life. You don't know what somebody's going through. So if that 5-minute interaction with you, or that 1 minute, or that 1 hour, if you can leave them better, just a little better than they found, or they can have a little better day or something. So that's to me more important than how rich we are, or what we do, or anything else. And what's interesting is we've had that philosophy for as long as I can remember. I've just tried, and I'm not great at. There's times I want to I want to slap them.
You don't want to leave them
I don't want to. I want to leave them worse. But here's what's interesting. I woke up the other morning. Matt woke up 3 a.m. And I wake up all the time and take notes and write notes and have things. And this came, just popped in my head at 3 a.m. and I wrote it down. And it was, man, when I leave them better. And if you can imagine a board and if it said, when you leave them in capital THEM, when you leave them better, you, capital YOU, leave them better. So when you leave them better, you leave them better. And that the inverse is true. When you leave them worse, you leave them worse. When all these things that you do, and that's when I go back and that circle back to people that have left at Rockwell or that have partnerships or anything else. My hope is, and I left them better. Hopefully they learn something. I look at all the people that have come through and they're very successful and they're doing a great job. I hope they learn something from our association because I learned from every person that's been there, even the ones that didn't end the way I wanted it to end. And hopefully it gets better one day. But if you can leave them better, it's impossible for you not to leave them better. And so I think that's a big reminder to me in business. And that's when people wear our watch or when you see, I think you said Eric's coming in next. If he's wearing the Rockwell watch, just have that when I see two people wearing the same, they're like, hey, or they have the same sunglasses and they're like, hey, you're a Rockwell guy. I'm hoping that our crew left them better at one point. Now, you can read all our reviews. They're 90%, 95% positive. There's still a good 5% out there like, man, they left me worse. I didn't like this, or this was terrible, and these guys are mean. And so we have work to do, but that's, I think, my philosophy in life, in business, in anything. If we're going to hang out, if my time, and I'm a watch guy. So my saying, it's all about time, everything's about time. If I'm going to give an hour of my time or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, man, we might as well leave each other better. It might as well be a better experience for both of us. So yeah. I think that's philosophy.
That's absolutely amazing. And I feel like we need to do another podcast. I have so many more questions for you. You said at one point, maybe I'll just tease the listeners. You said at one point, you can make money a million different ways. And we never got to talk about that. And I think we need to talk about that at some
because
point.
Look, most people think about making money. Look, what does money do? Money is just something you exchange for experiences and stuff. So if you can figure out how to have experiences and have stuff while making money, you can make money. If its only goal is to make money, you can make money. But
that we'll have to do it again. If you'll give me another hour or so of your time. By the way, I feel like you left me better. I feel like you left
me better.
Our listeners better. So thank you. I could not appreciate it more, you being here today. Where can people find you? Where can people find Rockwell?
RockwellTime.com is our website. And then you can, we have a pretty cool compound up in Woods Cross, Utah.
It's very cool.
Got a full-size football field in the back. Well, it's 80 yards. Soccer field, Avalanche Soccer plays there every day. We have a gym inside, sauna, some fun stuff. We do a lot of the manufacturing there. We do a lot of customization work. It's a fun place.
Anybody can come and visit?
Yeah, come hang out. We got a store there.
Yeah.
So
I can attest. Great product, great people. Love the facility. So
we do have I will tell you, the people that work there are some of the best people in the world. They're just great. They're leave you better type people.
I agree 100%. Well, Rich, thank you. Fantastic.
Thanks,
amazing. Rich Eggett, rockwelltime.com.
I didn't move too much today.
You were great. Right, very comfortable clothes.
I was super nervous.
Very comfortable clothes. You were so comfortable, you made me comfortable.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Know Your Ship podcast presented by eHub. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.